When I was in high school, I started booking bands and putting on shows, whether it was house parties or even at some clubs, managing a band way back in high school. Got them to a pretty successful level. That was kind of the beginning of the whole obsession. To send in a letter, like a letter, like I wrote it and
Like
sent it in,
a handwritten letter.
to Pam Wolf. For this show that 91X was doing at the time called The Great Unknown. Or send in your letter, your playlist, and she picks somebody to come in and be like guest DJ for an hour or two or something like that. Met her up with her, drove down to Mexico to the studio.
Because the 91X the studio was in TJ.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't know, we're technically a Mexican radio station.
Right. The stick is still there.
It's still there.
And there's still, somebody has to go there every day and make sure in case something goes wrong. So we were there, and I did the Great Unknown show, and she liked it so much that she got me in. So Pam Wolf got me in to 91X in like summer of 1988. I started helping out on her new music show with Kevin the Dead Dog Kid called Listen to This. The phone op on Listen to This was a guy named Marco Collins. That's where it all started. He talked Kevin into starting the loudspeaker feature on Listen to This. In probably summer of '88 is what we think was the beginning of it.
I love how there's no like solidified date of when Loudspeaker started. It's just it's always a little hazy in the memory department around that time.
Marco and I were definitely not sober during that time period, and we were not in bands, but we were very rock and roll. Marco actually had a show called Loudspeaker on KCR,
at San Diego
which was
State.
San Diego State station. You couldn't hear it unless you had cable, but or if I think you could hear it at Montezuma Hall
if you're
in the
pretty much
Rathskeller.
in the studio with Marco, that's the only way to hear it.
So he started over there. It might have been going like a whole year or more over there, and then so that was the natural thing to bring that same name over to 91X. Kevin Stapleford, Kevin the Dead Dog Kid, he's got to get a lot of credit for allowing it to have an hour and then 2 hours bounced around a lot in the late 80s, 88, 89 when it started. I started right away as Loudspeaker became a 1 hour and 2 hour show and was kind of like run around guy, queuing up tapes, getting information, doing the concert calendar. If stuff came in that he didn't know the band, I was like, oh yeah, this is a new band that is these guys from this and these guys from that, and stuff like that. So really a part of it for getting it. Thanks to Marco for letting me do that and just be totally into it.
Being at Loudspeaker at the ground level, what was the music scene like in San Diego then? When
Loudspeaker started in the late 80s, Marco turned me on to a lot of bands, and the scene was strong, but it seemed small. But as it evolved, when Marco left to go to Relativity Records, the scene really started to pick up. Cargo Records came in, a whole bunch of more indie labels, Goldenrod and things like that came out, and we're putting out tons of 7-inches. The record stores were really vibrant. There was still just a couple clubs. There's the metal punk stuff at Soma. There's the singer-songwriters at Java Joe's. The Casbah definitely had a sound back then, and Bodie's had a little bit different alternative kind of music sound and a little more of the blues stuff. I would spend my Saturdays typing up my playlist. I had to type it up, and there was a little bit of cut and paste with the Loudspeaker logo a friend of mine had drawn back then. And I would sit for hours and fax all individually each A&R person at all the A&R departments at the record labels in LA, New York, and Chicago. I'd spend hours on Saturdays and Sundays doing that, faxing my playlist every week with letters about, hey, check out these bands, they're coming out with new albums. So literally like trying to get bands signed, trying to get the scene noticed. In the mid-90s, when Bill Silva backed Loudspeaker by putting out a couple Loudspeaker tours, and then by financing the Mayday festivals, that's really when I think it really took off. The scene was so diverse, there's Heavy Vegetable and Crash Worship, Pitchfork, Drive Like Jehu, Night Soul Man, then bands like Flat in Manhattan, bands like DFA, King Mother, kind of metal and rock, Burning Hands. so many good bands from Off Pilot. Some of the things that kind of mark that I think I'm proud for Loudspeaker as being the first, picking out good songs and picking out bands like Blink 182. Played on Loudspeaker I played them from the Cheshire Cat cassette and then from a couple 7-inches that came out on Cargo. Of course, Jewel didn't have any recorded music, so her first radio airplay and out to the public was coming into Loudspeaker and playing live. And then I taped that and then used that cassette to play the songs later on the show, so just edited out our little talking part and just played that song. So I had something to play. POD, of course, and then other bands, so many bands that got signed from Miniature to Inch, Rust, Lucy's Fur Coat. Just a great, it's like 27 bands I think I counted up that got signed during that like 93 to 95 era to at least mid to major labels.
I mean, a lot of those bands you've been mentioning are still relevant and household names kind of now.
They are.
Like Jewel, POD are still active. They're still doing things. They're still selling out shows and whatnot. Like, that's pretty amazing 20 years later.
Yeah.
That they had their start here at Loudspeaker. Now they have careers they owe to Loudspeaker.